Good evening, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Helotes City Council. It's May 9th, 2019, and we're underway at 7 p.m. Before we start, if you have a cell phone or other communication device, if you would please turn it to off, silent, or vibrate, we'd certainly appreciate it. And we'll start our agenda tonight with the invocation. Councilmember Blue has that duty tonight, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance to the American and Texas flag. So if you'd please stand for the invocation and pledges.
Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for all of the blessings we have received, both as individuals as well as a community. We thank you for the success of our recent community events, and we pray for the safety and security of all our volunteers, our staff, and all of our citizens. These things we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, next up we have a couple of proclamations. The first one is proclamation for the City of Helotes Public Works Department, recognition of National Public Works Week, and that will be May 19th to May 25th of this year. So Josh, you and the guys, come on up. For those of you that don't know much about our Public Works Department, we didn't really have one until about 2010. We did have individuals that would do some of the work, but we officially started our Public Works Department in October of 2010 when Josh Mayer came on board with us. Little did he know he was going to be multitasking. Not only public works duties, but animal control and whatever else needed to be done. So he was moving around pretty quick. We had him in an old truck, and he was on his own for about 4 years. And then we hired Justin Vincent in December of 2014. And Josh has become our public works supervisor, and Justin is our public works crew leader. And then we have 4 guys that are part of the public works crew, so we now have a 6-man public works department, and they're still overworked. We have a lot of things that need to be done in the city, but they do a good job. We have Tim and Mark here, Tim Miller, Mark McGraw, and they're the next ones that came on, and then we have 2 that are fairly new that aren't here tonight, but I want to thank all of you guys for everything that you do and the hard work that you put in. Josh since has become our arborist, city arborist. He went to school and learned to tell a tree from a bush, and he's pretty good at that. And then he's also our stormwater inspector. Coming up, Corey. How you doing? Good to see you. Corey is our newest member, and he's fit right in, and he's a real worker. He's got a good grip, and sure loves that weed eater, as I understand. So I don't know if he loves it, but he uses it a lot. Go ahead and read this. It says, Office of the Mayor, Helotes, Texas, proclamation, National Public Works Week, and the statement is, it starts here. And it reads, whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Helotes, and Whereas the infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our transportation, water supply, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens of Helotes to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas today we recognize the work ethic and efficiency of our qualified and dedicated Public Works Supervisor Joshua Mayer, Public Works Crew Leader Justin Vincent, and Public Works Assistants Mark McGraw, Timothy Miller, Cody Matson, and Corey Volo, who reflect the highest standards of professionalism while striving to improve our city services and the quality of life for our citizens. Now therefore, I, Thomas A. Schoolcraft, on behalf of the members of the City Council, and by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the City of Helotes, Texas, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through 25th, 2019 as Public Works Week, and recognize and commend our Public Works employees for their service to our community, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused this seal to be affixed. Congratulations, Public Works. I don't want to stand any closer to him.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I got the camera up on my, okay. Got it? Good. Mark, congratulations. Hey, keep it up, keep it up. Oh, you moved. Good. Here's your proclamation.
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, while you're getting your next proclamation ready, I just want to make official note of the fact that all the events that occurred last weekend, it was quite an effort to get all that done, things back in order, and I think in addition to the proclamation that they ought to be given a good round for doing a great job. So.
Yeah. Yeah, besides all of the stuff that they do around the city, they also are responsible for setting up movie nights, the parade, and all the other community events, marketplace. So keep after it. And they're getting ready to start for movie night, which is a week from tomorrow. Okay, EMS, come on up, guys. For those of you that don't know Chief Moreland, Scott Moreland, he's our fire chief, came with us in the end of January 2018. And since he's been here, he has worked through his first budget with us and helped us put a program together to get a new fire engine, which was delivered in February. It's our lead engine, we call it Engine 1. And we moved the old Engine 1, which was about 20 years old, into reserve. And he found a program where we could get a good savings on a new ambulance by refurbishing the old one. We put the old patient box on a new chassis, a Ford 450 chassis, and they completely refurbished the old box and mounted on the new chassis, and we just got that delivered and in service last week, right? It was in service last week. So, good job. And these guys, I don't have the exact information, maybe you can speak to it, but we were in advanced life support EMS, and now we're also, if we have 2 paramedics, we've been upgraded to where we're an intensive care unit on the road, and that's how qualified all of our paramedics and EMTs are. So they do a lot of training, and they're just do an excellent job. at helping our citizens and others in need with medical emergencies and such. And they do quite a few transports. We started transporting with our EMS. Actually, we put it together and organized it in 2010, but we didn't start transporting patients until March of 2011. And they average still about 30 some odd EMS calls a month, between 30 and 40, and transport a little over half of those. So they do a great job, and they've saved some lives along the way, so we really appreciate them. So I'll read this proclamation. It says, Office of the Mayor, Helotes, Texas, proclamation. National EMS Week, Beyond the Call. Whereas the emergency medical services is a vital public service, and the members of our emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas the emergency medical services system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize our highly trained emergency medical services team members, Captain EMT Jack Quip, Captain Paramedic Garrett Daughtery, Captain Paramedic Carl Hudson, Engineer Paramedics Rowdy Johnson, AJ Freiborg, Jeff Dower, Firefighter Paramedics Derek Smith, John Sobchak, Jessica Marone, Paramedic Brady Van Bevers, and Firefighter EMT Justin Muth, Jennifer Harris, Corey Ramon, and John Bertram. Now therefore I, Thomas A. Schoolcraft, on behalf of the members of the City Council, and by virtue of the authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Helotes, Texas, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through 25th, 2019 as National Emergency Medical Services Week in the City of Helotes, and commend and recognize our EMS personnel for their dedicated service to our community. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused this seal to be affixed. Get a little handshake action going there. Good job. Thanks, guys. Always appreciate it. Garrett, always good to see you. Next up on our agenda is the open session or citizens to be heard. Selena, did we have anyone sign up?
No, Mayor, we did not.
Okay, thank you. We will move on then to the consent agenda. For those of you that are not familiar with the way meetings like ours proceed, the consent agenda is generally a grouping of different agenda items that I, along with staff, consider to be fairly routine. And so the intent is to get one motion and 1 second to handle all of the consent items. If a council member has a question that can be answered very briefly, they can ask it and we'll handle it. If they'd like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and placed later in the agenda as an individual item, it's their prerogative to do that. Tonight, the consent agenda consists of items 5 through 11. So I would ask now, are there any questions on 5 through 11 or a request to remove any from the consent agenda? Nothing?
I have a question.
Shoot.
Yeah, on number 8 about the pedestrian bridge. I know I thought they were going to start construction in early May. And I'm sure with the weather and everything, it probably would have been pushed back anyway, but now there's some type of survey being done for potholes, subsurface utility engineering?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have a problem with the transferring of the funds, which is what the agenda item is about. But how much longer is this going to push back the project? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, we located, there was a conflict. The bridge company, the people doing the abutments were concerned that they were reading that an AT&T line was running through two of the piers. The engineers did not think that was the case, so we had the subsurface utility exploration done. And we did find that the AT&T duct was in the two piers furthest away from the street. And so they've relocated those piers, and they're scheduled to start week after next with the bridge abutments. It's not holding us up because the bridge itself, the manufacturer had to do the shop drawings, and they were projecting probably early to mid-July for delivery. So it'll only take about 3 weeks to do the abutment, so we're still have plenty of time. But that's going to be pretty interesting, and we'll let everybody know when the bridge is scheduled to be here. They'll have two huge cranes out there, and the bridge comes in two parts. And this is a 130-foot-long pedestrian bridge that'll go in Old Town across Helotes Creek, just adjacent to the existing vehicular bridge. And so it's going to be a pretty awesome project, and we're excited to see a way other than walking across the existing bridge for pedestrians to get from one end of Old Town to the other. So that's basically what this is. And since we had some other delays through time, mainly due to the EPA, that's what's caused some of these increases.
I just just make sure the project gets started
Okay.
as soon as it can.
Yeah, no, we're hitting our target of July.
Very good.
Mr. Mayor, with those explanations, I'd move that items 5 through 11 be put on the consent agenda and approved.
Items 5 through 11.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Meadows to approve consent agenda items 5 through 11, and we have a second from Buys. No discussion being indicated, we'll call the question. All in favor of approving consent agenda items 5 through 11, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Consent agenda items 5 through 11 are approved. That takes us to item number 12, discussion of and action on a request by Dr. Deborah Keepers, for approval of a monument sign and a variance on her clinic out by Whipplewell Drive. So if I can have a motion and a second to discuss and take action.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion we discuss, take action on 12.
We have a motion from Buys,
I'll second.
second from Blue. Bert, it's your motion, so you're up first.
First of all, I don't know why they need a sign, because they are so busy over there. Everybody knows where they're at. My gosh, that place is a beehive. But no, I agree with the staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation of approval. They didn't want to require landscaping because of the irrigation lines being a little bit being far away. Also, the V-shaped sign is good too. And then also the size of the sign is correct. So I agree with P&Z and the staff's recommendation to approve this agenda item.
Okay, Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of issues with the sign. In the end, I will vote to approve it, but there are a few points I want to make with regard to the sign itself. You may recall that the sign has been there for a long time, and it was required to get a permit since it did not have one on file, and that we gave them a time certain to replace it with something that meets code, and of course this doesn't. But we're coming up on that time. I understand the part of what confuses me, I guess, is the way staff presented some of the data to us. One, there's some indication of whether or not under item 4, it says number of signs the code allows there to be one for each street frontage, and it says it doesn't comply, but to me this is still only one sign. So I don't quite understand why staff said it didn't comply just because the shape of the sign is different. I'm not generally in favor of allowing a V-shaped sign, because what that does is it can And I'm mentioning this now, even though I plan to vote to approve this particular sign, because I'm concerned that in the future, we're going to allow other V-shaped signs that will then exceed our size requirements. We allow an 84 square foot sign. And while in this particular sign, it only has 36 square feet twice, which is 72, so it still falls within that. The question is just, is there the shape? But if we start thinking that we're going to allow an 84 square foot and call it call it one sign and just allow somebody to open it up where the entire sign becomes visible from one, then we've essentially created a 168 square foot sign, and I have a problem with that. So to me, I would rather approve this as one sign that's 72 square feet that just happens to have an angle to it, as opposed to calling it something different. Now, maybe that's philosophical, but I think that we always see issues. Well, you let them have one, now I want one too. It comes back over and over again. And while I don't have a problem with this particular sign, it also fits within the size requirement. I just want to make sure that we're not setting a precedent that goes down the road and lets somebody that does have a much larger sign and open into a V shape, then all of a sudden we have something that's well in excess of our guidelines. So in that sense, those were just the comments I wanted to make, because to me, I think they're very important for the future of how we approve it. So those are my thoughts. Thank you, sir.
Jim?
Nothing additional. I guess I'm a little bit confused. Does the sign as it sits, if it were straight, would it still comply with our sign code?
Yes.
Yes, so it's, okay, so I'm not sure we're setting a precedent for future signs because this is still sitting within the maximum for an individual sign.
If I may respond, the answer is the way the staff put the document together, they're putting it in as it doesn't qualify as one sign, and therefore we need to give a variance to call it two signs. And I'm of the opinion that that's not
We don't need the
a variance we need to grant to call it two signs. We should call it one sign, just happens to have a different front facing to it, that's all.
That was my only question. That's what I thought.
The only other comment, I'm sorry, I'll get it on the
Go ahead.
second round. I was going to say, just to the doctor, because I know twice at P and Z, because it came up a year and some ago, and then before us, there's some indication that the area that this sign sits on is going to eventually be sold, which means, eventually, I get that. And so I was just going to make the comment that realize that our code does not allow an off-premise sign. So if this particular lot is sold, then you wouldn't be able to keep your sign there, you'd have to move it to your own property. I just wanted to make that comment, that's for information.
Paul?
I didn't have an issue with it. I think it's kind of a unique design for a unique spot. And according to staff recommendations, where everything is in compliance with the exception of shape. But, so I didn't have any problems with it.
Okay, Bert, any follow-up?
No, sir.
Alex, any additional follow-up? Jim, anything?
No, sir.
If you might consider amending the motion and for all purposes, just amend it that you don't consider this a V-shaped sign, you're considering it as a single sign if you want to. Just a thought.
Don't have a problem with the way it's worded at all.
Okay. Anybody else want to do that? Okay. No more discussion? Okay, we'll call the question then. All in favor of approving the variance on Dr. Keeper's sign, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. You got your sign? Congratulations. Number 13, next, discussion of an action on a request by Trent Stein for approval of a master sign plan for Helotes Oaks Retail Center. This is the new building right there across Diamond K from the Dairy Queen. So if we can have a motion and a second to discuss and take action, please.
Mayor, I make a motion to discuss and take action on item number 13.
We have a motion from Byes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Fredericks. Okay, Bert, you're up again.
Okay, once again, I agree with P and Z's recommendation to approve the request for Trent Stein for a master sign plan for the Lotus Oaks Retail Center. Also, and then it was, the commission also believes that it's the city's best interest that any deviation from the code be approved on a case-by-case basis and not part of the master sign plan. I agree with that part of their recommendation also.
Okay, Paul? Anything?
I agree. I
Okay.
agree with what P and Z had and then Councilman Bice.
Okay. Jim?
No comments.
Alex?
Yes, sir, I do have one slight comment.
Okay.
Just for the record, to make sure that we understand that the original application is requesting 1.25. However, the document that attached to it is showing 1.0 square feet per linear foot. So there is a discrepancy, and I know that that's what was discussed a lot at Planning and Zoning. So I'm in concurrence with what Planning and Zoning is. I think our staff is aware, but I don't know if there's anything necessary in the motion to say that what's being requested in their application is not what is being requested on their document. If you note on the document up here on the screen, the lower left-hand note says they can request up to 25% above. Based on that statement, and on the left-hand side where it says 1 square foot per linear foot, that indicates 1, and they can request it, but their application does not say that. It says
Right.
1.25. So
Okay.
I'm gonna make sure we can reconcile that to go back to what this says. the
Yeah,
1 square foot.
what you're approving is the master sign plan, which would be this
fine.
sheet
Thank
here
you.
and the other. Jim?
No, sir, no
Anything else?
questions.
Let me get back. Bert, you're up. You got any
No, sir, I
follow-up
do not.
comments? Paul, any follow-up?
No, sir.
You don't have any, Alex? Okay, so the motion will reflect, as all master sign plans do, that it shows the layout, the allowed layout according to plan, and that it will require each tenant then to bring their sign to the P and Z and to council, and if they want a larger size up to the 25%, they would ask for that variance when they bring the sign to P and Z and council. So that's the way the motion will read. Okay, we'll call the question then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. On to item 14. And this is a canvassing of the special election ballots cast, or the votes cast. And this is required by the state. And we do have the totals verified and signed off by Jackie Callanan, the Bear County election official. And so this is just a matter of having a motion and a second to approve the canvassing of the special election vote.
Mr. Mayor, I so move.
We have a motion from Meadows. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Fredericks. Jim, you need any discussion?
Just one brief comment, sir. Watched 2 of the networks, the local networks, during the election process, and they both made the statement, categorical statement, that the elections were canceled in Helotes amongst other small cities. They didn't note it was the general election or the special election. They just said that all the elections were canceled. If we do have an outreach to those medias in the future, I think we might try to help them out a little bit.
So what you're saying is the media made a mistake and
I would never say that, sir.
something wrong? I can't imagine.
I was going to put 2 things together and call it a fake election, but
Yeah, okay, right. Paul, any comments?
No, sir.
Okay, Bert?
That's why I don't watch the media. Anyway,
Yeah, right.
no, I don't have anything, sir.
I have no comment.
Alex, no comment? Then we'll call the question. All in favor of approving the canvassing, say aye.
I
Aye.
Opposed, say no. None heard. The motion carries. We don't have to do a roll call, do we? Okay. Very good. Well, by golly, that finishes our agenda. And so we're going to be out of here. If there's no objections to adjourning, I'll go ahead and adjourn. Any objections? Speak now. Okay. We're adjourned at 7:29.